Hey friends, let me start with something insane I kept seeing back when I lived in China, and to this day. Every time Japan did anything, write something in a textbook, sneeze too loudly about Taiwan, or visit Yasukuni Jinja Shrine, whatever, Chinese social media would explode with the same comment flood. Japan should be nuked again. Tokyo should be wiped out. Time for revenge for Nanking. These were not fringe vetoes. These were trending posts drowning Chinese social media feeds. You would think nuclear genocide was a Chinese national hobby. And meanwhile, Japan is still taking a cautious, principled approach in debating what its constitution permits in terms of self-defense. But here's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to touch. What happens when a pacifist nation is surrounded by nuclear bullies? So today we are diving into the nightmare scenario everyone whispers about but refuses to say out loud. Should Japan, yes, pacifist Japan, build nuclear weapons? For 80 years, Japan's answer to nukes has been one giant absolutely not. And understandably so, because Japan is the only country to ever suffer a nuclear attack. The emotional scar is still deep and it's generational. And pacifists argue the Constitution bans nuclear weapons. It doesn't, not a single line. Since 1957, every Japanese government has quietly repeated the same position. Nuclear weapons for self-defense is technically allowed. But then came Prime Minister Eisaku Sato and the famous three no's: no possessing, no producing, and absolutely no bringing nuclear weapons into Japan. It's a well-crafted moral stance that has zero binding legal force. And that's the Japanese way, very loud moral clarity, but quiet strategic ambiguity. And here's the part very few talk about. Japan is already a closet nuclear power. It has everything, it needs to build a nuclear arsenal fast. 45.5 tons of separated plutonium, which is enough for 1,000 nuclear warheads. And world-class, submarine aircraft production. The ability to enrich material to weapons grade in short order. So Japan, in a way, is that student who says, oh, no, I don't lift the weights. I'm peaceful. While bench pressing 220 kilos with perfect form. The only reason Japan hasn't gone nuclear is simple. The US nuclear umbrella was supposed to protect it. Was. But the problem is, Japan's neighborhood just got worse. A lot worse. Let's take a tour. China. China has doubled its nuclear arsenal to around 600 warheads, on track to hit 1,000 by 2030. They just had a massive military parade, and they're threatening Taiwan daily and shouting "Nuke Japan" every time Japan does something that annoys China. And North Korea. They have 50 nukes today, enough material for 90, ICBMs tested, and guess who is helping them? Russia. And Russia threatens nuclear strikes the way most people order Uber Eats, and openly supporting North Korea's missile and nuclear program. And meanwhile, the wealthy, stable, democratic Japan is supposed to just cover its ears and hope, the bullies stop shouting. Because for decades, Japan lived under the strongest nuclear umbrella in human history, the US guarantee. Not just, a defense pact, it's a belief, almost a faith that the US would always show up no matter what, no matter when. But here's the reality we just have to acknowledge. America's strategic priorities are shifting. Not out of hostility toward Japan, not out of betrayal, but because American leaders, left and right, are responding to what Americans feel at home. The US is stretched thin. The world is on fire. And American voters want their government to focus on American crises first. From inflation to immigration to a border under pressure to domestic polarization. Washington is moving toward a doctrine that says the American homeland comes first. And honestly, from an American perspective, that makes complete sense. Great powers recalibrate, national interest evolves, and a superpower cannot be everywhere at once. But here's the part Japan must wrestle with. A US strategy that prioritizes the Americans inevitably means the Indo-Pacific gets fewer resources, fewer guarantees, and fewer automatic commitments. That's not America being unreliable. That is America being realistic. And recently, Politburo leaked a draft US defense strategy suggesting the US could shift its top focus away from China to safeguarding the homeland and the Western Hemisphere. Again, not abandonment of allies, just a superpower recalibrating toward its voters' concerns. But for Japan, the message lands differently. The US nuclear umbrella still exists, but it may not be unconditional forever. And when deterrence becomes conditional, even a little bit, Japan suddenly faces a question it has avoided for 80 years. What if there comes a day when the US, for entirely understandable domestic reasons, can't respond fast enough or can't respond at all? That's the geopolitical reality Japan needs to prepare for. And that is why Japan must start discussing options it once considered unthinkable. Prime Minister Sato's logic against nuclear weapons was built on 4 pillars. Number 1, NPT. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty will prevent proliferation. And number 2, global nuclear disarmament will progress. And number 3, peaceful use of nuclear energy stays separate from development of weapons. And number 4, again, the US nuclear umbrella will never fail. While today, North Korea exists, Ukraine happened, China and Russia are increasing their nuclear arsenal, America is inclined to be stepping back from excessive foreign obligations. So all 4 pillars collapsed. And Japan now faces the nightmare its leaders avoided for decades. Rely solely on American protection or build its own deterrent. And here's the terrifying truth. Japan doesn't need to want nuclear weapons. Japan needs to decide whether it wants to be nuked, be nuclear blackmailed by hostile neighbors, or defend itself. These are the options now. Does that mean Japan will go nuclear? Not tomorrow, not next year, but the old rules, let's face it, the old illusions are gone. A pacifist nation like Japan can stay pacifist until it is one missile away from attack. Japan doesn't need 1,000 nukes. It just needs enough to say clearly that if you destroy us, you will not survive either. That's what deterrence is, irrespective of America's foreign policy. It's not aggression, it's not militarism. And honestly, after 80 years of restraint, discipline, and moral leadership, Japan has earned the right to ask this hard question. How do we survive the world we live in now? Not the world in the past. Because these threats are real. The neighbors Japan has are very unstable. And even pacifists deserve to live in peace without blackmail. So here's the real debate. Will Japan cling to a romanticized, idealized past, or prepare for a terrifying future? If you care about global security, this debate is not academic, especially for Japan. It's existential.